tell me a dad joke.
I don't perform well under pressure like that.
You just don't have a dad joke ready to go?
I was making up a joke. I did not come prepared for this. Off to a great start.
You don't have any jokes that come to mind?
So 2 kids went to go stay with their grandfather.
Okay.
And he cooked them breakfast. They ate breakfast. Came back in for lunch. And they're like, Grandpa, are these the same plates? And he's like, yeah. And they go, well, did you wash them? And he goes, yeah, I washed them with cold water. They're like, oh, that's kind of weird. So they go out and play for the afternoon. They come back in and eat dinner. And they're like, Grandpa, did you wash these plates? And he's like, sure did. Wash them with cold water. They're like, oh, that's wild. They're getting ready to go to bed that night. Grandpa goes, okay, y'all say your prayers and say goodnight to cold water. And the dog walks by wagging its tail.
I like how I asked you if you had a joke, and at first you said no, and then you told a 10-minute long joke.
Well, I mean...
like you remembered it.
Would you rather me gone like, yes, yeah.
Okay. All right, well... I'm not going to probably use any of that. I was just trying to loosen you up.
That was a good joke.
I might still use it, but I haven't introduced the podcast yet. Okay. Hey, guys. Welcome back to the Home Sweet Home podcast with Marissa. I'm your host, Marissa O'Conner, with the Charlotte Cole Group at Keller Williams. I have Reid O'Conner on the podcast today.
Just Reid O'Conner,
My
not your
husband.
loving husband of how many years? 8 years?
In October. It'll be
That's
8
right.
years.
In a month. Less than a month.
Yep. And we are recording from our house. And there's Sam's in bed, but that doesn't mean he won't make a surprise appearance. And the dogs are running around and chewing on stuff, so this is it. This is life.
This is our circus. Could be some background noise.
Yeah.
Hank's at our feet.
This is us.
Chug's
right
on the
here.
couch.
Yeah. So I wanted you to be on the podcast. Thank you, by the way, for...
You're welcome. I appreciate the invite. I'm very excited. A little nervous, but very excited.
You're going to do great. You're going to do great. I wanted to bring you on today so you could... you've been listening to my podcast, and it's all about how to become a homeowner, and we are homeowners. So because I've helped Charla help so many people get into their homes, I have to say I've kind of forgotten a little bit about our own homeownership journey. So I wanted to invite you on today and just ask you, like, what do you remember about it? And we can kind of just reminisce on it for people that have never purchased a home before. And we could kind of maybe, like, ease them into it. Because, like, if we can do it,
Yeah, for sure.
anyone can do it, right?
Of course. No, I think that's a good point. Like, really anybody can be a homeowner and purchase a home. I know y'all have got a great group of lenders that y'all work with and a fantastic team in the Charlotte Cole Group. So, yeah, you're right. Anybody can be homeowners, and it was one of those deals when we were younger. We're like, let's buy a house. And I had no idea what I was doing. But fortunately, we had a really great realtor that we used. Shout out Charlotte Cole.
Shout out to Charlotte Cole,
Yep.
aka best realtor of all time.
She's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
10 out of 10. Would recommend.
Would recommend. 5 stars.
Yep.
So yeah, so Charlotte kind of guided us through it, but when we first were looking for homes, like, do you remember, like, what we were saying about our criteria?
Yes.
Like, where we wanted to be?
Yes, like, so we're both from Cyprus, grew up here, and we're like, we don't want to live in Cyprus. We want to live somewhere else. Just, I don't know why.
Like, out of spite, maybe?
No, I don't think it was spite at all. I think it was just wanting to be our own people and be in our own place. And, you know, from Cyprus, moving back to Cyprus. Hank, what are you doing?
Hank is licking me. Hank, stop. Go sit.
Come here.
Go sit.
Come here.
If I could
Sit.
add to that, I would say, like, also, I think our friends Scott and Taylor influenced us a lot when we
for
were
sure.
going to buy a home, because they lived in town and they bought a house in the Heights, so we're like, we want to buy a house in the Heights. Like,
For sure, and I think that was also one of the things that like we started off on that foot where initially living in an apartment where we rented and lived for over 2 years. We were young and we're like, I don't want to deal with traffic. I don't want to live out in the suburbs. I want to live in town and we'll be young and hip and go out and do all those fun things. And by the end of those 2 years in our apartment, it seemed like every time we'd go do something outside of like an Astros game or the rodeo or something, we were, driving.
Cyprus.
We were either in Cyprus or we were driving out of town towards the Beltway, outside the Beltway, moving further and further out. But yeah, I think, our friends did have a little bit of an influence on that. We both also worked in town. You were behind the Galleria with your past company. I was just off 290 and Antoine with mine. We, we're like, oh, there's no reason to live out in the suburbs.
Gosh, yeah. I remember when it took me like 7 minutes to get to work.
It was
in
great.
The morning.
It was awesome.
Very convenient.
But I wouldn't trade what we have now for that. Like, I love the area where we're at. I love our house. I love the space we've got, the garage, everything about it.
I think it was just like the timing in your life.
Yeah.
Like it's something to think about. And like that was a very short time for us because we started our family pretty early.
Yeah.
So, when you're going to buy a house, sometimes things happen and you don't expect to plan a family that early. It kind of just happens. But if you know that's in your cards, I would definitely take that into consideration when you're looking at the location you're wanting to buy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we ended up, sorry, so I cut you off. So
Well,
we're looking for criteria.
Yeah, we were looking for criteria, and it was like, we didn't really know where we wanted to live. We thought we knew where we didn't want to live, which, spoiler alert, we moved where we didn't want to live, but it was where we should have been, and it was the right place to end up. But Charlotte was great. She showed us all these different houses and anywhere we wanted to look, and gave us things to look at prior to just driving around town wasting time. Look at this, look at that, look at it online, use the HAR app. One of the things we did was sat in the living room and we'd both look at the HAR app and take turns screen sharing up to our TV and swiping through pictures of a house and going, I don't like that, no, I don't like this. But we kind of drew like a bubble around Cyprus, it seemed like, and it was like, all right, we don't want to live here. Let's look here. And we, would look at a house here and we'd be like, oh, I love this house. I don't really like the neighborhood. And we'd eliminate that area, eliminate this area. Next thing I knew, we had a bubble around Cyprus that was the only place to move. So ended up moving into Cyprus and into the house we're in now and couldn't be happier.
Yeah.
So
I like our house a lot. And I think the lesson from that is like, don't discredit an area without like giving it a chance, or like be more flexible on your wants and needs, because
I wouldn't go in and rule out an area because of a preconceived notion or because of a thing you think you've got made up in your mind that, oh, I know that I don't want to live here. You may be ruling out an area or a part of town or a city, a state, whatever it may be, just
it
based
might actually
off.
Work for you.
Yeah, that may be the best place for you to end up at.
Right. And so when you talk to your realtor about like your wants and your needs and criteria, if they're a good realtor, they're like diving in and like asking like, well, why don't you want to live in that area? And if you have specific reasons and they're valid and you're sticking your guns to them, then great. But if it's the reason you just don't want to live there is just because, then I think
exactly. We had no reason.
We didn't really have a reason.
We had no reason not to want to be in Cyprus other than, well, I was from Cyprus. Went to Cywoods High School. Grew up here. Want to see something different. Yeah, different may be good, different may be bad. I mean, we saw different living in town. But no, I think utilizing your resources, looking online to see statistics of the area and what you want and don't want helps. Google Earth, street views and things like that too are really good to look at.
And just driving around on your own to figure out what you like and don't like. But yeah, so we ended up back in Cyprus. And when we did start finally looking at homes in this area, what do you remember about touring homes? I don't think we just did it maybe just a couple times before we bought this house.
We didn't look a whole lot. I think we looked like 5 or 6 days maybe. And each time it was like, 2 to 3 houses. It wasn't like, all right, we're going to spend all day Saturday looking at houses. we'd find 2 or 3 in a general area, go look at them, and then go back home and look on our phones some more to find something else. I remember looking at some areas and thinking like, I remember us making a few rash decisions on houses because we didn't feel rushed by Charlotte or by anybody other than ourselves of like, oh, we've got to get in and jump the gun and be first in line, instead of taking the time to really find what we wanted. And when we finally did that, we found where we're at now, which was the right move. We thought we wanted to make an offer on a house really quick after looking at it, and we got home and you made a recommendation and said, hey, why don't we stop and put together a list of must-haves and wants, or wants and needs in a house. And I think that made a big difference. Like, one of the things you had on your must-have list was a dining room, which we're sitting in now, and you can see the china cabinet behind us. That was one of the things that you're like, wherever we buy, whatever we buy, it has to have a dining room. One of the wants that I had was a 3-car garage. Fortunately, we were able to end up with that, which was great. But it wasn't one of those deal breakers, right? If we ended up in something with a 2-car garage or an attached garage that was smaller, it would have been fine. But we put together that list, and we were able to, utilize that list of things that a house had to have for your requirements and also my requirements, and we were able to eliminate a lot of places based off that. So I thought that was a really, really useful tool and good thing to do.
Definitely.
Yep.
And yeah, I think maybe Charlotte may have made that recommendation, or yeah, I think she made that recommendation to make the list, and then like you compare and contrast notes with each other. And like when you first do it, it's funny because normally you don't have the same things on your list like exactly, but hopefully a couple of them match on your wants and your needs. But that's where you kind of have to like meet in the middle and compromise and be like, okay, so if this house doesn't have that, is it absolutely going to be a deal breaker? And normally it's no, or maybe it is an absolute yes. Like, you really do need that 4th bedroom because you're growing your family, you have a lot of guests in town. Like, that is you have to have. So
I'm trying to think back on what my list of must-haves were, and I can't really remember what any of them were.
I kind of wish we still had that.
Yeah, we should have held on to that.
I feel like something that was on my must-have was maybe a fireplace, which is hilarious because I do love our fireplace.
You know what? No, I am thankful we had our fireplace during the freeze. That sucker ran for like a week and a half straight.
Oh, yeah,
Without it, it would have been brutal. I mean, we had a newborn kid in there with blankets over his pack and play. As a must-have. Yeah. Must-have
well,
is
hopefully that
fireplaces.
doesn't happen again in
better be
Houston.
prepared, though. You never know.
It is good to be prepared. I do love our fireplace when we do get to use it, like 1 month out of the year. Yeah. It's nice.
I think one of the must-haves I had was a detached garage. I didn't want a garage that was directly built into the house just for energy-saving purposes and the noises and things like that. I'm a big fan of detached garages, but I mean, again, like thinking back on my list, I'm like, is that really a deal breaker? Probably not.
No.
If it was the perfect dream house, yeah, I could probably get away with it. But if I'm building my perfect dream house, it's not going to have an attached garage. It's going to be detached.
Right. So, okay, so kind of shifting gears, what do you remember about when we made an offer on the house that we're in?
I remember being super nervous. Because it's obviously the biggest purchase we'd ever made, and still is the biggest purchase we've made to that point. I remember there was, for me, just a little bit of confusion of the finances and the this and the that and all the different parts and pieces, and listening to, our lender talk about escrow and all these different terms. Our lender was awesome, and he, would pick up the phone and call us at like 8:30 at night, and or we could call him or text him and say, hey, what do you mean by this, or what do you need this for? And he was really good about walking us through and answering those questions. So
yeah, I mean,
that's what y'all bring, those good lenders.
There's a lot of moving parts with it, and it's okay to ask questions. I would say that's like one of my biggest pieces of advice is there's no such thing as a dumb question when you are purchasing a home, because there are, like you were saying, so many terms you don't know that, these people that do it every day, they're just so used to throwing around. Not to say that they're like talking above your head on purpose, but just naturally they're explaining things, they're talking fast. Maybe you missed it the first time they said it, it's okay to ask people to repeat themselves and, really understand what's happening. And it can eliminate a lot of confusion,
Yeah.
hopefully give you more clarity and more confidence in the decisions you're making.
Yeah, I remember one of the things that I was, really frustrated about. I naturally am a person that I like to do my own research. I like to, jump online and Google stuff and figure out, if I don't know what it means, what I think it is, or what it is based off the internet, and typing in things into Google regarding that process and escrow and terms I didn't know. You just get led down these terrible, not terrible websites and like, oh, it's bad, but like just
Rabbit holes of information,
well, not
like
ridiculous,
vague.
yeah, vague terms and things. It's like none of
Right.
this is helping explain things to what were we, like 25 years old? And I was
Yeah,
like,
what the heck are you reading right now?
what the heck am I reading right now? I don't
Well,
like.
and I think it has to be so vague online because all of the laws are so different
Yeah.
depending on what state you're in, and it's all of the circumstances are different, just depending on person by person.
Mm-hmm.
So it has to be pretty vague
Yeah, and
to kind of just I don't know,
yeah, and
cover everything.
that's where Charlotte was great, and the lender we worked with, and the title company that we worked with, where we were able to call and ask those questions, and getting that explanation from somebody, either over the phone or through text message or in person was invaluable and great for me, what I needed.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I was new too. I didn't know anything at that time.
Yeah.
Still learning, to be honest. I mean, there's always something new to learn.
Yeah.
Okay, so on top of just the feelings you were feeling, do you remember like the actual process of the steps that happened to us getting this home?
Yes, in terms of like the timeline, or
Yeah, like what happened?
like how we'd made an offer and there was already an offer in front of us, and we were
Yeah, I think the home was option pending, which means
yeah
that the other
Yes.
people were still in the process. They were in their option period
yeah,
still.
and because they'd gone through with the inspection and something had popped on the inspection,
I don't remember
but
what
I don't
happened.
remember what it was.
I don't
but
remember
yeah.
what happened with them.
Yeah, I remember, Charlotte calling us and saying like, hey, it's option pending, but your offer's been submitted. Feeling a little disheartened at that point, like, oh man, because we loved this house when we looked at it, and made plans for it immediately, and started picturing ourselves in it and picturing our things in it, and picturing life in it. Mm-hmm. But just, I mean, feeling disheartened and not feeling like we're going to get to end up in the house, and then I'm going to say, fortunately, the other deal fell through or
Just
whatever.
didn't work out.
Or didn't
with
work out
them.
for them. Fortunate for us, unfortunate for them. And Charlotte called us and said, hey, they've accepted y'all's offer, and suddenly it was like a rush of things that we had to do. We were into the option period, and we had to get an inspection scheduled, and me being in the construction industry, I wanted to be a part of the inspection and be out here while the inspector was here. And the inspector that Charlotte recommended was fantastic, and he showed me a
Do you
bunch of
remember
things.
his name?
I don't, off the top of
Was
my
it
head.
Chris Zimmerman?
Yes.
It was?
It was Chris
Oh,
Zimmerman.
it was?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love him. I didn't
Yeah.
know he inspected our house.
Yeah,
Okay.
Chris came out, inspected our house. He was fantastic. All the questions I had, and like I said, being in the construction industry, I'm very hands-on and like to see and know what he's looking for, and what deficiencies he saw. He also made recommendations for me. We walked out into the garage and we're looking at the decking out there, and up in the attic and the storage space, and looking at electrical panels that's out in the garage. And he turned to me and he's like, "Man, this is an awesome garage. It's sheetrocked, and the sheetrock's finished and painted and everything. And it's lit really well, but the floor wasn't epoxied." And he said, "Man, if y'all end up in this house, the first thing you should do before you move in is do an epoxy floor in your garage. Spend the weekend, spend the time, spend the money, do it right." And I was like, "That's a fantastic idea, and I'll never own a house now without an epoxy garage
Right.
floor."
Before we moved all of our junk in. It was just a
Exactly.
clear garage.
But going through the inspection and all the different steps and everything, it seemed like a whirlwind. And yeah, I mean, just there were so many different moving parts and things. But Charlotte was great about talking us through each step and what the next thing was we were going to have to do. And then suddenly we're at closing and we're at the title company. We stopped by the house one more time to look at it before we went to go sign all the papers and everything. Mm-hmm. And I remember we sat down and signed 1,000 things. Initial here, initial here, initial here. And it's like core memory or whatever. I was wearing a watch that day, and I'm sitting there signing everything, and I kept like glancing at my watch to see what the date was. And you like looked at me, and you're like, "The date hasn't changed, babe." And I was like, "I know, it's just habit."
Oh my gosh, I'm so mean.
No, not mean at all. It was really funny. But yeah, I mean, then we closed on it, and it was like, "Whoa, we just bought a house. This is this is where we're gonna live."
That's crazy.
Little did we know where we're gonna start our family, and here we
Yeah.
are, 5 years later. Yeah,
So 5 years?
5 years, because Sam just turned 4, and we lived here over a year, and then had Sam.
Wow.
5 years in this house,
Yeah.
and it's been good. I mean, it's been a lot. There's, pros and cons to home ownership.
The pros definitely
pros
outweigh the cons.
Way outweigh the cons.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's tough things to do, but it's also, it's a great learning experience, and, a chance to figure things out, and, have your own place that, you take pride in, and you get to make your own and make the changes, paint this wall, change the flooring, change ceiling fans, light fixtures, all kinds of things like that we've done so far. And
Yeah. And just the equity you build.
make a house a home, and then build equity.
Yeah. The equity you build is like just unparalleled.
Yeah.
Is the biggest asset
Yeah,
that you have.
I love logging into our mortgage app, and looking at our mortgage and everything, and then looking over at what the appraisal value is, or what the the different values of valuations on our house, and it's like, oh, heck yeah, we built all this.
Yeah, we're in the green.
Yeah, all this asset just getting better and better. So
Yeah, and it's amazing. And then, take that, hopefully use it towards next home, investment home. Want to do something like that. So, I mean, like,
rental
I would
property
say,
or-
yes. And then when you're renting, like, some people may say, like, oh, well, it's just so easy to rent. Like you mentioned, homeownership is a big undertaking. I don't want to do all this work on a house.
yeah, I think that was a good step for you and I also. We lived in an apartment for 2 years.
Then we lived in a rent house.
Apartment living was, it was easy. There was no upkeep, there was no yard work, there was your apartment. At the same, it had its pros, but I think the cons outweighed it there in my mind.
And then all of the money we were spending on rent is just, might as well
Throwing it away.
throw it away, burn it, because
yeah.
you're not getting that back.
Yeah, and then we decided, let's buy a house, and we weren't ready. We way jumped the gun on that.
Well, we didn't do anything wrong. We just
No.
talked to a lender, and they were like, yeah, you got some work to do. Like, got to work on credit.
Yeah,
Got to do this, got to do that. They gave us a nice little checklist. We went to work,
yeah.
and then
Went to work, and our lease term was up at our apartment, so we went to a rental house and moved further out of town, out towards the energy corridor, and living in a rent house was good. I think it kind of helped us where we were maybe on the fence with like buying a house to suddenly saying like, yeah, we definitely want to buy a house. We want to have our own place, and we don't want to be in town. We don't want to be in a townhome. We want to have something with, a little bit of a yard, with a garage, with our own space, with our own storage and everything. And renting, and I think, the way our rental was set up might have been a little different than others. Paying through Venmo for rent and things like that,
I don't
which
know.
is kind of
That's
wild.
we did it through PayPal.
Or PayPal,
It's pretty common these days. I mean, if you're not going through a landlord that's like, oh my gosh, what is the word? If you're not going through property management people and like paying like a site, you will just pay like PayPal or
Yeah.
Venmo or Zelle. It's
Yeah.
not that uncommon. And we got a landlord that wasn't like a big property manager thing.
Yeah.
He just had like a couple of investment homes, which I personally liked better.
I did too. Michael was super awesome, easy to get a hold of.
He'd swing by the house, like
Yeah.
change out stuff for us. Like,
Well, and
we were really good
I
tenants.
think we
though,
were,
too.
we were great tenants. I wasn't somebody that was going to call and be like, hey, this light bulb burned out. Like, I can change a light bulb. Yeah, I went to A&M. How many Jaggies does it take to change out a light bulb? One. Just me.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, he was a great landlord, but we were really good tenants. We love being in our backyard and spending time in our backyard. And
Yeah.
you remember all the work we did in that backyard.
Yeah, we did a lot of work to the, like, not the house, but the yard. Like, we just
Yeah.
made it look really nice. We, like, strung, like, there was a huge tree in the backyard that we really loved. And the
Gorgeous
lot
oak tree.
was huge. The lot
So
went
deep.
back, like, how many feet do you think?
It was 70 feet deep.
I mean, it was
an
a
awesome
crazy
backyard.
huge lot.
Yeah.
And that's what, like, we were really drawn to that from our apartment because
Yeah.
we were like,
went
we
from-
want a yard. We had a little dog. Well, we still have her, Riley, at
The
that
Chug.
time, our Chihuahua pug mix. And we were like, yes, we just want to open the door and let the dog go. Like,
throw the dog
Because
out.
we had to walk 3 flights of stairs to let her in and out multiple times, day and night.
Yeah.
And so when we got to that rent house, we saw that yard. We were like, yes. Anyways, it had a huge tree in the backyard that we loved, and we strung lights like all over it. And because the yard was so deep, it was pretty dark back there. There wasn't like extra lights. So whenever we put the lights on that tree, and like we had like our, what was it? Your parents
The
gave
canopy.
us a canopy
Yeah.
and a chandelier light and like a rug, and we got like furniture
Oh, yeah.
out there. It like really lit up the whole backyard.
Then we had the hipster lights strung between the tree and the canopy in the
yeah,
garage.
it looked really
and-
nice. We did a
and-
really good job.
Well, and you could tell when Michael had bought that house, he bought it as a rental property or a flip property, and he focused on the house
Inside.
a little bit of exterior things, but his attention wasn't the yard, it wasn't anything like that, and so yeah, I mean we went and cleaned up the yard, and I think like at most we bought like 2 or 3 bags of mulch to put some mulch down, but
A lot
everything
of
else.
sweat equity and
Yeah, a lot
gifts
of-
from mom and dad.
Well, a lot of sweat equity, and then all the rocks that we used to like line the planters and things like that. That was all stuff that we found in the yard that had been buried under weeds and growth like that he hadn't done, and he was great. He gave us a break on rent after we did all that. He's like, "Oh my God, y'all made my yard look amazing, and y'all are tenants. What is wrong with you, crazy people?"
Did he really give us a
Yeah,
break on
yeah.
rent?
I think like that month we had like half rent or quarter rent or
Oh,
something like that.
sweet! That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
so like one of those circumstances, it's nice
But I
to have
remember-
like a small landlord like that who
Yeah.
would, like, if it was a big property manager, they'd be like, well, you just wasted your money.
Exactly. But no, I mean, I then remember when he posted that house for sale after we moved out, clicking through HAR and looking at it, and it was like, man, that backyard looks fantastic. So, yeah.
It looked really good. We worked really hard on it. So I think when we lived in that rent house, we were like, yes, we were ready to like make something our own because we were tired of
Yeah.
working on someone else's house.
It reaffirmed the feelings we had of, yeah, we think we want to live in a house. We're pretty sure we want to be in one. We want to move into our own thing. And I'm glad we did. It was the right call.
Yeah, and we could do it because we're like, well, like we were looking about how much we were paying in rent, and making the stretch to buy a home was just like a couple $100s more a month
Yeah.
to own our own home. So it
Yeah.
was like a no-brainer. Like, okay, yeah, we can do it. Like, because sometimes I feel like half of the battle is just like the mindset. Like, I can't
Yeah, there
afford
was-
that. Like, what? I can't own a home. But when
Mm-hmm.
you talk to a lender and they give you the hard numbers, you're like, oh, I can do this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you look at buying a house and you go, oh my gosh, it's how many hundreds of thousands of dollars? Like, not saying what our house is, but it's like, oh my gosh, that's $300,000. Like that's such a massive amount of money. But then you talk, like you said, you talk to a lender and you're like, you look at what the terms are and you look at what your mortgage is and your interest rate, and you're like, oh, yeah, I can totally do this. Like this is very doable. I do remember being a little hesitant and leery when we were getting ready to buy because you don't know. Living in that rent house did give us a little bit of that peace of mind, but I also know after like 3-4 months I was like, dang, I wish we'd have bought before. We could have gotten it done earlier, but we weren't ready. We had to. I had to build my credit. We had to get.
We had to save up for a down payment. And
Yeah, exactly.
do a
We had
couple
to
things,
had
so.
to do the few things that were on our checklist that Charla and the lenders we'd talked to had given to us, and
So, like, the
Yeah.
other big piece of advice would just be, like, talk to a lender as soon as you can. Because they may tell you, like, it's not time yet, but that's okay because the next thing they'll tell you is this is what you need to do to get into a home. So, the sooner you talk to a lender, the sooner you can get a plan, the sooner you can start building your equity and becoming a homeowner.
yeah. And I think one of the big things, talking to a realtor, it's free. You can just pick up the phone and call this one. She's pretty good to talk to, her or Charla. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing that says like, or you're not dropping down $2,000 to talk to this person. Like
Right.
It's a phone call. A phone call's free. A phone call's
resource.
easy. It's a resource. Mm-hmm. Utilize your resources. Don't be stubborn like me and be like, oh, I can just look this up on the internet and figure it out. That doesn't work all the time.
Yeah.
Talk to somebody that
knows the market, knows the area,
knows the region, knows the market you're in, knows the area you're in, that can provide you with that feedback and that information.
Yeah. And then, because the quicker you start making moves to like put a plan in place is just going to benefit you in the long run. Like we dreamt for, like 2 years, like, oh, I can't wait to own a home one day. Mm-hmm. But we never talked to anyone. Like we didn't talk to anyone until like 2.5 3 years in.
I wish we would have done that earlier. Is talk. One of the things I wish we would have done earlier is talk to a realtor and figure out what we needed to do, right? Because we wasted 2 years of time where we could have been putting more money away for a down payment,
working on credit,
building our credit better, and doing those things that we need to get ready for buying a house. Mm-hmm. And we might have known the area we absolutely wanted to buy in, like this neighborhood specifically, or anything like that, where we wasted time, but would have been a good use of our time. Yeah,
I mean, everything works out for a reason, but if we could pass down a piece of advice to someone else, that would be it. Not saying that we regret anything, but just we would do it maybe a little differently, or just try to help someone else do it better than we did.
Yeah.
That's it.
But yeah, it's great. Buy a house. Buying a house is a good idea.
Just do it. Or just talk to someone.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
You don't even have to buy one. Just, start the conversation. There's nothing wrong with the conversation at all.
Yeah, and even if you're just like a little hesitant about who to reach out to, I would say just start bringing it up with people like in your life and in your circle. Like, hey, I'm thinking about buying a house. And you never know. Someone may be like, oh, well, I know a great realtor, or I know someone that could help you, or maybe they have their own experiences they can share. But the more that like you get used to saying your goals out loud, the more that... Did you just realize you were slumped over this whole time?
No, I was just stretching my back.
Okay.
If I like sit up straight, I'm like, oh.
No, I was just saying, like, the more you get used to saying your goals out loud, like, the more things will come to you. So say it out loud, put it out there, let others know, and then, you'll get help.
I think you also, hit the nail on the head there with finding a realtor. Have some criteria for your realtor. Don't just go pick somebody because you see their name on a sign. Pick somebody you trust. Pick somebody that answers the phone, right?
Just use someone that calls you back.
Yeah, use somebody
people don't have to answer for you to use them as their realtor.
That's what I was getting at is, find somebody that either answers the phone or calls you back. Find somebody that's readily available.
Responsive.
And somebody you like, right? You're going to spend some time with this person. They're going to be showing you something that's pretty intimate. You're buying a house. It's something you're going to live in, unless you're buying a house to flip or a rental property. But it's something that it's a personal purchase. Find somebody you enjoy working with. Find somebody you like. Charla was fantastic. I love working with her. I'm pretty sure I love working with you.
I don't know. When we were looking at houses, you didn't love me so much. We got into it a little bit.
We were a little few arguments, but I still love you and
I
still
love
you
too.
But yeah, find a realtor you like. I can't recommend Charla enough. She was fantastic. So
yeah. Well, this has been really fun. Thanks for sitting with me and talking about all this.
For sure.
Is there anything else you wanted to add that we didn't talk about?
We're gonna make this the next Joe Rogan episode. We're gonna blow up like Joe Rogan. Go viral.
Okay.
Yeah.
You think?
Yeah.
Well.
For sure.
You heard it here.
Love all our listeners. They're great.
Yeah. Just do it for the fans.
Yeah.
No,
ASMR.
Please don't. Please do the ASMR. Okay, well, thanks guys for listening. And thanks for being on here, Reid. I love you.
I love you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this was really fun. I liked it a lot. Okay, so I will see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.